Hey there, welcome to School of Emo, the podcast where we dive into the world of emo, pop punk, and everything in between. If you've ever found yourself in your car screaming the lyrics to Taking Back Sunday, wearing way too much eyeliner in the early 2000s, adding a buckle or a chain to every outfit you've put on, you are in the right place. I'm Erin Judge, and each week I will be your fellow student, guiding you through the music, the culture, and the history that shaped an entire generation of angsty teens. I am not the teacher of this school. I am a fellow student, here to learn alongside you and from you. Together, we will cover a lot of information that doesn't really matter, but will remind us of the days of stalking MySpace channels and getting lost in chat rooms. So connect your dial-up, turn on your webcam, and let's go to School of Emo. Today, I'm so excited because we have our first interview, and I've been dying to have someone on. Again, this is meant to be peer-to-peer, and I need teachers. And today we have a teacher, and I'm very excited because we are going to talk all about the Black Parade. We set the stage. Last week we talked about MCR, but today we're going to go a little bit deeper, and we have Frannie. So Frannie, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on here.
Yeah. So before we talk about Black Parade, I want to hear a little bit about you and why you love My Chemical Romance. Like, what is your story, I guess, with your fandom and why you even share My Chemical Romance stuff online now?
So I'm Franniestein, or well known as the Emo Fridge. I started making TikToks as a pandemic hobby almost 5 years ago. What started as quick little videos showing some pieces of my collection that are just ancient relics I've gathered over the past 2 decades, has organically blossomed into nurturing and cultivating the My Chemical Romance fan base and using my knowledge to help educate other fans on their history.
Amazing. And you're perfectly placed for this because I think in a lot of episodes, I've talked a lot about these waves of emo, and it's interesting watching some things unfold in the 2020s because, I'm 33. So I was around in the early 2000s. And when the third wave of emo really rose, and My Chemical Romance is part of that, right? Black Parade is right at the height of that. But we saw this huge wave of like emo, pop punk, post punk music. We had Warp Tour. We had all the bands like on TRL and TV, like in the limelight, right? And then things sort of like kind of faded or got a bit weird. And now I feel like, some people call it the fourth wave, some people call it the revival, whatever you want to call it. We're seeing a different explosion that's fascinating. Like, what do you think about that? Or what are you noticing as someone who's been around through all of it?
I've been an active fan in the fan base since 2004. I used to live on the fan boards like I'm not okay.net. And in the 2010s, I was a manager at Hot Topic. So there I was connecting and fostering the fans that were getting into the band post breakup. And I followed the fan base from MySpace to Tumblr to now TikTok and Instagram. And it's always interesting how different generations interpret things differently, and they can bring brand new insights and ideas to something that's been around for so long.
Yeah, I agree. I think I've never been, I call myself like I'm very much more pop punk girl. Like I'm very pop punk. My favorite bands are very pop punk. I've probably reconnected to the emo bands that I love more as an adult in my 30s, I think, than even whenever I was younger, mostly because I'm from Southern Arkansas, small town. There's no Hot Topic near me. There was no scene in my space. I barely had internet access for the longest time, so I was never part of the scene around that time. It was just more like, oh, this is the music I like. When I got my hands on a CD, I'd listen to it, but I was never deep in a fandom. And now I'm really into the bands. This is what I go see. Yeah, this is what I spend my time on. But I do find it really interesting that the younger generation that's now really into these bands too, like I think in some ways it brings maybe some negative things, but overall there is a lot of positivity with the bands even being able to tour and the dressing, like getting to like create things. Like I'm really loving that these days, like creating costumes to wear and just being really excited about it. And even I think the online spaces of the how things are very normal, where it's like, oh, this is okay as a hobby. And back in the day, what could have been a source of maybe bullying or different othering is now much more accepted, which is, I think, a beautiful thing. I know some people disagree with that, but I
No,
think it's
it
great.
really is a beautiful thing. And this new generation of fans, they're the lifeblood of the fan base. They're what keeps them going they're what keeps the band relevant. And they bring so much to the table. And one thing I've talked about in my content in the past is how songs like Mama have adopted a new meaning because it was originally a song that was about war because it was written during all the wars in the Middle East going on. But now it's a gender identity affirmation anthem. And it's all due to, these young fans discovering and expressing themselves so much more openly than we could have in the 2000s. So this is just a beautiful example of how new fans help the fan base flourish.
I like that. I listened to one of the rare Gerard Way interviews on some, I have no idea where it was, like random, found it one day. And he was talking about how like he doesn't like fans to tell him what the music means to him or to them, because he wants the music to mean one thing to him, of like he wants the creation to be very pure and like his inspiration to be, what it is. And then he wants the fans to experience it themselves and their experience to be what it is. Like he doesn't actually want them to blend that much, which I think is so. At the time I was like, I don't really get it. And now I'm starting to understand of like, oh yeah, I see that play out where there is, especially with the tour right now that we're going to get into. But I think that is fascinating to see like that desire he has even playing out in the way that fans are experiencing the music today and before.
When they announced the breakup, they said, My Chemical Romance isn't a band, it's an idea, and ideas never die. So going back to what you were saying, this idea can be interpreted in any ways. There's no right or wrong way to interpret the lore, the music, the concepts, which just really makes it so much more special because you can kind of make it your own in a way.
Yeah, well said. So I do want to get into the lore. I want to get into it today. But before we get into Black Parade today, walk us back because you became a fan. I think you said once that the Black Parade was your first tour of My Chemical Romance, right? So you became a fan right at the height of the Black Parade post Revenge. What was going on at that time? Like, walk me through original Black Parade, set the scene. What's the storyline? Who is the Black Parade?
I've got the Black Parade special edition booklet here because when we talk about the lore and the concept, the Black Parade booklet is such a key part of understanding and explaining the lore. Now, for me as a fan, the height of my obsession as a teenager was 2005 to 2006 when this album was in creation and getting to be at the very second date of the original Black Parade tour, which was the Way Down show. It was just such a special and magical experience. And even watching these live performances now, I see them perform in a certain way. I see them pose with their guitars or play their guitars a certain way, and it takes me right back to that moment all those years ago. So it's something very sweet to have experienced and lived it. And we weren't in a algorithm-based social media era. We were a fan board era. So and LiveJournal and all these other so it was not as easy to obtain information. It was not as easy to share information. So anytime somebody posted any little tidbit or update, it was like a little piece of treasure.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand. I've talked about that a lot too, even of the music video era of like why music videos were not just, iconic pieces of art, but they were vital for the success of a band. Whereas today, a band could like do a TikTok of themselves, like then that's just as successful. Like you don't really need a music video. I think they're coming back because people love it, but at the time, like that was what we had, or like late night trying to request something on the radio to hear it, or waiting on the TRL, like the top 10, on the weekend, like, things like that. Like you just didn't have access to it. And even, I've talked about before, even that of being able to obtain music. It's like if you couldn't go buy a CD, like you were lucky to download it online, or like a band post to MySpace and have their music there available to you. And then we have YouTube, which is helpful, but we kind of had to steal things before we had access to it. And if you didn't have money or you lived in a rural area, like you didn't get access at all. And so it's very hard to comprehend in today's world. So it is interesting that even a band like My Chemical, they were able to build the storylines of, especially the Black Parade, but Revenge, Black Parade, Danger Days, like the storylines themselves. How could they build those in an era where that wasn't even available? Like it's insane to think about.
Gerard's background in comic books definitely helped with building all this world building and lore.
Yeah, for sure. So Black Parade, who is the Black Parade?
Now, there's three different things, so to speak. You have the Black Parade album concept, you have the Black Parade tour, and now we have this Long Live tour. So as the original album concept was described, is death comes for you in many different ways. This is the story of the patient. The patient's most special childhood memory is that of a parade. So death came for the patient in the form of the Black Parade. Now, when they did the tour, the Black Parade became a new character. They, Gerard tried to personify the patient in those live performance shows by opening up the concert being wheeled out on a gurney under a sheet. And through a 3-year long tour process, the Black Parade became its own character outside of the original concept. And now that character has been brought back for this Long Live tour and is being expanded upon each night of the show.
Why do you think, especially being around at that time and what the fans were thinking? Because I did find it interesting. I was not at the original tour. And so it is interesting looking back and seeing that the Black Parade then became kind of its own separate band and entity, but the original album itself was so much about the patient. Where do you think that that changed? Do you think that that was the original plan, that then the band would be the Black Parade? Do you think that kind of just came out of like, oh, let's try something different? Like maybe this concept doesn't work for a tour. Like, what was going on around the time with fans and their understanding of how that changed?
Back in the day in 2006, there was articles and interviews everywhere about the Black Parade concept. So we became fully enveloped in that world. And I don't even think we realized as the tour progressed that it was becoming its own entity. When it comes to the concept of the album, Gerard Way did an interview once saying the Black Parade album is like the Canterbury Tales because the patient is on a hero's journey. Each character the patient encounters is almost like a song on the album. This is something I've gone into detail before, but it's just really interesting when you look at the concept of the album in that manner and how, House of Wolves, the wolves represent the devil. Mama is mother war. Fear and regret can either be applied to sleep and I don't love you. So it's very interesting how you have all that deep, rich lore encased in that album. And it's just, how did they manage to go back to this after all this time and create something new out of something they once made? Because if the Black Parade is ushering the patient into death, how is that going to tie into the Long Live lore? That's why I like to think when they ended the tour in Mexico, that's when it really cemented that the Black Parade came to life as a character, almost in a Freddy Krueger kind of way. The more you think about it, the you manifest it into being.
Yeah, that is interesting because I guess that is now more of a common belief, but in the middle of it, that maybe wouldn't have been which is now fascinating of what's going to happen by the end of this tour. So, transitioning from the original Black Parade into Long Live, how did the tour end, right? The band supposedly like burned up, the patient had died, and Black Parade was over, correct?
So in the they have the Black Parade is Dead live performance DVD. And that, which is funny because that wasn't the last performance they did for the tour. They did Hoboken after, then they did their infamous Madison Square Garden show. But they cemented in their own history that that performance in Mexico is where the Black Parade died. You know, that is it. We are done. We are never bringing this back. But to release the promotional video announcing a tour in Mexico, saying, having a newscaster say, you know, they were led to believe they died in a fire, but they have been brought back like a phoenix almost. It's very interesting, and I'm excited to see what more information we're going to glean each performance on this tour. Because there's many different theories going around.
Yeah.
We all have notes on what is actually happening because there's still so many questions left to be answered.
Absolutely. And I do want to talk about some of those because I've been trying to gather that from people as well. And I think it is interesting how it seems like, oh, there's an idea of what's happening. And then it seems like something gets thrown into the mix and changes it. And it's like, what is going on? So starting with the original, the teasers, right? I think the first big teaser was the feast video, right? Where we saw like the dictator. Isn't that where it started, or do we have a pre
The
teaser to
feast
that?
was the third or fourth. The first
Okay.
one, um, because there was opera, feast, and then I think the very first one was where they announced the Long Live tour. And in the
Yeah.
description, they said that the Black Parade had been sent to the Moat, MOAT. And that's where we first learned about the country of Drog.
Yeah, so the new or long live, I guess, Black Parade today. The storyline is we're in the area of Drog. We have the immortal dictator. The Black Parade has been brought back, and they're serving supposedly the dictator. So this is like a celebration to the dictator as the front face value initial information that we have. There are little things with the first set of teasers, I guess, before the tour started. There was a lot of belief that maybe this is Paper Kingdom's MCR5. What were some of those symbols? Like, why were fans so, which I guess we still are, maybe crazy to think maybe this is coming, but why were fans so obsessed with MCR5 as the main point, even after Long Live was announced?
Now, the Paper Kingdoms, that's a whole other story and spiel that I can rant and rave about for hours. But with when they announced the return and they had the summoning videos and all of that, a lot of the theming was correlates to what would have been on the Paper Kingdom album. And they had songs like Witch. We were having a whole bunch of leaks going around before the Long Live tour was announced. So as soon as a tour was announced and we have all these leaks, everybody jumps to conclusions. But personally, I don't think we will ever see the Paper Kingdom album, mainly because Doug McKean, their engineer, for many years has an Alien, I believe, Black Parade, all their albums. His tragic passing during the period of returning and producing the tours and such, that definitely um, derailed a great deal of plans they had and debuted War Beneath the Rain the other day, mainly because Doug McKean's family was in the crowd. But of course, everybody is so hungry and desperate for this album. They're like, it's still going to happen. But it's kind of a beautiful thing that people are just so eager and hungry for new music from My Chem. And you have the Paper Kingdom and MCR5, which are kind of like two separate entities now, because we have the Foundations of Decay. And
Mm.
that was not meant for the Paper Kingdom album because we have the track list of all the songs for that album leaked out there. So we're waiting for the rest of the Foundations of Decay album to finally come out.
So with that in mind, what do you think is going to happen throughout this tour? Do you think, with your own intuition and your own experience with the band, that we are going to get the rest of Foundations of Decay? Do you think there will be any album released during the tour? Or do you think it's only going to be the storyline of what we have with Long Live, the tour as big and huge as it is, and then maybe something later?
My tinfoil hat stays on. If you only saw my reaction to watching the live stream of the very first show, I was like, where's MCR5? Get back on the stage. We're waiting. They did just finally play Foundations of Decay, so I'm going to take that as a good, hopeful sign. I know, like in my logical sense of brain, I know that they are working and developing on this really beautiful, intricate storyline that mirrors so much of what is going on in today's world, and that maybe towards the end we will get a new album announcement. I'm hoping they announce a European tour because they are just so feeling so left out in all of this. And they are constantly asking me, when is it going to happen? I did manifest them playing a number of songs during the reunion tour. That was a funny thing that was happening. I would do a deep dive on a song like Sister to Sleep, and then the next day they would perform it for the first time since 2003. I could just keep praying to my Gerard Jesus candle that we will get MCR5 at some point. I always say it's not an if, it's a when.
Yeah, it does seem like that. It seems like it's hard, I think, with a band like this because you could equally say that there's no reason that they would be putting this much work into what they're doing and like this much virality, this much reach, this much new fandom, all of this without something else coming along the way. It's like, it's wild to think that they would do that. But also, they could they are a band that would do it simply because of the times and like, hey, this sounds like this would be fun, this is necessary right now, let's get into this storyline and give this to the people and then be done. I guess you just never know fully what they're going to do.
After the Black Parade, the band really struggled to reach that level of success again. They, they first recorded Conventional Weapons and scrapped that album because it wasn't a concept album. And then they created Danger Days, and it wasn't as commercially successful as they had hoped, but it was also during a major shift and change in the music scene at the time and with social media. And then they were in the works with Paper Kingdom. Uh, Literally 6 days before they announced the breakup, there was news, Kerrang articles talking about the album. But that ultimately got scrapped because it was way too dark of a concept. So I can see and understand their hesitance to release something because they have this massive shadow of the Black Parade looming over them. It is their highest level of success album. How could they ever top something like this? So maybe by expanding upon the lore and using it as a bridge to a new era and a new concept and a new generation, it might just really help them finally break through the struggles they've had.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it does seem like that because I do want to get into some of the things from the tour. I've got like my list of highlights that I want to hear your thoughts on and what you're kind of digging into. But it is interesting to see one that it expands. I think after night one was wild. Especially after When We Were Young. So I was at When We Were Young, and that's my first time ever getting to see My Chemical Romance. And I was stupid enough to believe that that might be my only chance. And I was like, they're going to be there. I need to go. And like went last minute. And I was expecting Black Parade as the Black Parade, and to see them come out and do a very different style of performance with like very much like the patient hospital room, like not in the Black Parade costumes. Gerard did lean into some of the weird stuff that then was kind of in the teasers and stuff to follow, and like the dog barking and all of that stuff. And so it was interesting, but it was like, wait, what is going on? And then seeing the tour, I was scared that it would be a lot like when we were young. So I was like, oh, well, okay, it's going to be different. Like, there's not going to be the same type of theatrical performance quite like we got or that you guys got with the first Black Parade. And then the first night, mind's blown, but then every night since has changed. And so there, the ongoing storyline part of it, I think, is so fascinating. So I want to talk about it because I want to hear what you think. So starting off with the tour, and I don't know every detail because I'm trying to avoid all the spoilers because I'm not seeing them until Philly. So I've got a couple of weeks left. But we have the start off of the show, the bouquet, the wheat laid at the drums, the drum processional. I've heard some theories on, I think you reposted something about the possibly kind of an ode to Bob Breyer, because he was the drummer at the time, passed away right after the tour was announced, likely would not have been part of the tour, not really with the band much longer, kind of controversial. But what do you think about that? Do you lean into that? Because that's not something I've heard many people talk about until I think the video that you had reposted.
That was my friend Lisa's video, and she's amazing. She's been at almost every one of these shows so far. And I really appreciate that she made that video because Bob is a topic I try to avoid unless necessary because of everything surrounding Bob. And of course, you see a bouquet being laid in front of the drums. That is, you're obviously going to make that connection. And the bundle of wheat, the wheat symbolism is spread throughout, even embroidered on Marianne's dress. And wheat can be a symbol of death and rebirth. And it's also interesting. I know I'm going to jump to the end, but the clown picks at the bouquet and plays with the wheat during his portion,
Hmm.
which is interesting. And I also really love that they're doing the Drog Auxiliary National Band, and they have Tucker Rule from Thursday and Dunes being a part of it. It's nice to see so many friends of the band and the presenting of the wheat, especially being done by the clerk. It's very interesting. I know there were some rumors and theories that, Bob's character was taken out by Drog to set an example. So it's a beautiful symbolism. I hope on the Chicago show they might say or do something a little bit more. But I do really love what they're doing with all this wheat because it's also, I know I had people telling me Ukraine is a high producer of wheat, the Cold War. There's a lot of much deeper meaning tying into all this wheat.
Yeah, yeah, that is really interesting. And then we saw that play out too with the national anthem, which was released after like night two, maybe. I
Mhm.
can't remember like where it fit in to the picture, but the national anthem also showcases wheat.
I had put together, I don't know if I still have it. I wrote out the entirety of the national anthem and did like a line by line breakdown because, for such a short anthem, there's so much imagery and it's telling a story beneath it. Because while it's a national anthem, it's really telling their citizens to stay in line. You know, their place is on the fields harvesting the wheat. They must be quiet and obey. So it's just very interesting that that is how they're using the national anthem.
Yeah, and that plays out into the shows because after the start, pretty much throughout the entire show, it is the Black Parade being forced to stay in line. So they're performing, staying in line themselves. We'll talk about some of those specifics. But then there's also the use of the Black Parade and Gerard, I guess, as the spokesperson, trying to get the audience to also stay in line. Now we're seeing a few little embers of resistance,
Mhm.
which is interesting. So I want to talk about that because I think that is fascinating. So one, the dictator is there, right? Like at the show, and Gerard starts by like praising the dictator.
Yes. So the first few nights, the dictator is a mannequin, a puppet. He's not a real human being. But for the LA shows, they actually brought the actor out and had the live dictator on the stage, which is really cool. because there were some theories floating around that if he's just a puppet like this, maybe Marianne is the true head of the, kind of like in Blind, how there was from the Danger Days comics, Blind was run by this one woman. So it's just, there's a lot of connections between that and the Danger Days lore and all that stuff, which is, I'm getting off track. But
Too many things. There's like layers upon layers. It's too much sometimes.
it is astounding how we can fold in elements from the Bullets album, the Danger Days album, into what is going on with this Black Parade performance. And it's really nice to see the resistance because when they mentioned the Black Parade was sent to the moat, was that a mind control? Are they being, reprogrammed to fall in line? Because, like you said, Gerard starts out introducing that we're the Black Parade, we're here to perform for the dictator, and isn't he beautiful? Isn't he glorious? Stuff like that. And it's just very interesting.
Absolutely. And then there's also the extended mama, because we can't not talk about that.
Oh my God.
Because that was one, I think, from even night one, or even from before night one during rehearsals. The
Hmm.
people that were like filming, the rehearsals and everything, they were sharing how Mama is extended. There's no new song, but Mama's extended, and this is a big deal. And I've seen, again, maybe it was you, my algorithm right now is all about this tour, but the theory is that the actual lyrics from the extended Mama leans towards resistance. So talk about that, like what's going on with the extended Mama and your thoughts when you first heard it.
It is so exciting because Mom is such an important song. I love that they hired a professional opera singer to kind of take Liza Minnelli's place in this performance. They had that teaser video called Opera, and now it's like, oh, that makes sense. What is going on now? And I just love the way Gerard says, Marianne, how are you? Just in that silly little accent. I adore it. Um, and even the song, we've got a secret, we've got a song. And that kind of ties into, okay, is MCR5 real? Like, you're telling us you have a song, right? So where is it? Um, but it's really beautiful because in the past, My Chemical Romance has always used their live performances to either tease, perfect, or practice a new song they were working on. Songs like Stay, songs like Disenchanted had the original version called Shut Up and Play. They've always used the stage to kind of grow their talent. So you got to see that kind of tied into what they're doing, but it's also why is it Mama? Why is it these lyrics? Why is it the opera singer? There's so many questions left to be answered.
Yeah, which we're seeing sort of unfold, but there's a lot of shows left. And even the ones now that keep being released, it's almost like every week a new one's being announced, extending this whole era a little bit longer. So, where does resistance start to fit into play? Because we have a few pieces to the different, shows. We have the execution election, started as an election. Surprise, it's an execution. Fans get to vote. Fans voted to execute or elect. Then next show voted nay, but it still happened. So there's some resistance happening from the fans a bit, and they're being invited in. And then we have the slap where Gerard does tear up the paper and seemingly is resisting whatever order he's been given. That also turned in. Now there's a phone where he can't resist. So walk me through the resistance that is tied into those pieces of the tour.
I'm in the process of working on a PowerPoint going over the entire lore. So I started a timeline of events of the very first show, just writing down the important parts that happen in between songs. And it's kind of like a play. Each act, there's something new going on. The Alexecution, as Gerard has coined, is so interesting because one, like you said, the fan interaction, the fans love that. I know there are fans who now want to create their own signs that say resist in the language they created because everybody's waking up to the idea that yes, giving you a option to vote in this election, but no matter what you say or do, it is always going to be an execution. And that almost goes back to the Over Fields of Wheat national anthem. You're giving this false sense of hope, false sense that you have choice in the matter of what is happening to you right now. And then throughout the show, you have the clerk coming in and kind of checking Gerard's character, trying to force them in line. That first night, Gerard received a note that everybody translated to "Mother does not love you anymore." And everybody's minds were spinning with that. And then when Gerard starts to resist, that's when the slap happens. Now, in one of the other shows, when Gerard receives that phone call, my interpretation is that they are threatening Gerard with their own mom because, mentioning a woman who's older, it's her birthday. It's one of those like, are they trying to warn, basically subtly say to Gerard, we know who your mom is, where she is, and if you don't comply, we'll hurt your family. Classic tactics like this. And then in one of the most recent performances, big spoiler, Gerard is dodging the slaps.
Interesting.
And then another big piece is when Gerard is being forced back into the Black Parade jacket, almost being like forced once again to physically conform to this role, to this concept. And one big thing that I keep questioning in the back of my mind, do they continue to do Black Parade related projects because their record company is forcing them to? You know, do they feel trapped in the machine? Do they feel trapped in having to continue to promote and work through all this? Is that why? That's just one of the things I question. Is this a bigger metaphor for what they're experiencing in the music industry?
That is interesting. And that does go to, I think, when the tour was announced and even with When We Were Young, it kind of made sense because the whole vibe of When We Were Young was like the biggest albums of that time. You performed the album, every band had to do it. None of the bands really seemed to love it. They did it, and their set was one of the best because the Black Parade is an iconic, every song of the album is the best song, right? So it's a great album. But whenever that ended, I know we were entering into the anniversary for Revenge, and we have, the album that was released, but that was released as this tour is being promoted, and people were curious of like, well, why we already did, because there was a comeback that had already happened of Black Parade performances, right? In like 20, was it 19, or it's happened in
The
2022?
2016 10th anniversary Black Parade album release that came with a whole bunch of really cool B-sides.
Yeah, which aren't being played yet, right?
Um, they played Heaven Help Us, I believe, which is a Black Parade
Okay.
B-side.
So coming out now, but people were wondering of like, why are we doing Black Parade whenever Revenge is entering its like anniversary? But now we're seeing Long Live be so different, so that may be why. But that is an interesting theory of like, maybe that is the reason.
Is it contractual obligations for them to release a certain amount of albums? You think about what Kesha and other artists have been through in the past, because Revenge, the remaster, was released on it wasn't even around their 21st anniversary. And a lot of the merch and promotion with it just kind of fell flat for me. Even the songs
Yeah.
picked to be on this, it was like, there was a lot of other options they could have gone with, but it is what it is. And I'm happy for anything the band puts out.
Yeah, same. I bought it and I love it. And the other album, I don't have it up there, but the one that they released, I guess maybe before the tour, I forgot when that happened as well, but that was like the compilation sort of greatest hits style. And then they had the interviews. I'm gonna have it up here somewhere. There's like the interviews of the band talking about all of the songs. Oh, this one. May Death Never
Oh,
Stop You. Yeah.
that
Which,
one came out a year after the breakup.
oh,
Almost like a
but
month.
when did I get this? Maybe my husband just bought it for me randomly. I got this only like 2 years ago, maybe.
Um, I'll move the camera a bit, but it's kind of buried behind stuff. But I was
Yeah.
at Hot Topic during the time, so I was able to take the promotional
Oh,
material
well,
poster for the album home.
that's really cool. Yeah, I really like this. I don't know, maybe it was just like on their website or something, and my husband just might have gotten it for me as a gift. But I really liked the like the little like notes from all of the band members of like what the different songs mean and all of that. But it's just
That's one of my
interesting. It's like
go-tos.
all the little releases, maybe, maybe could make sense. All the bands I feel like got a little screwed by record labels and that side of it around that time and continue to, so could be part of it. All right, so let's talk about the clown. We have all these characters. Where did the clown come from? Like, because even the dictator sort of ties a little bit to the original storyline. Marianne sort of ties, right? The clown seems very not tied to the original, or maybe it is. So walk me through who the clown is and what you think about it.
Now, my friend Trevor, he did an amazing breakdown of the clown and tying it back to, I can't pronounce or remember the name, but like this classic, iconic clown you see throughout history being used over and over again in operas. But the actor who portrays him is Charlie Saxton. And, why does the clerk become the clown? That I think is a big question. It's almost one thing I was theorizing recently was, does he realize what a joke he is as the clerk? Is it the coming to realization that what he was doing, being a puppet of the dictator, you know, is he making a mockery of himself and just, kind of doing his little explosive performance? I know that performance was very shocking for a lot of people who did not expect it. And the symbol that's on the vest is very interesting because we've seen this symbol on the equipment in the background, and in the past two nights, where they usually have the rules on the sides listed before the performance, one day it said you saw nothing with that symbol, and I forget what it said the day prior, but it was something similar. So there's just a lot of interesting layers going on with this clown. And I love that they created a performance out of the song Blood, because during the original Black Parade tour, what they would do is they would finish Famous Last Words, go backstage to go get changed, take a breather before they did a revenge set. And during that intermission period, they would always play Blood overhead.
So
So
they did
now,
it when we were young as well. That was like the breaking
yeah.
point, and it was just there. We all were singing it, and then they came to do like some of the bigger hits of other albums.
Which day did you go to when we were young?
The second day,
I was at the first one.
I think you got the extended extra set because I think we got maybe we didn't get I'm Not Okay. Like there's something we didn't get that I think that you guys got maybe for time. I don't know, but
Yeah. The clown definitely ties into opera with Marianne. And, I'm really, there's another thing, going back to the note Gerard received, because I'm just remembering this with the mother doesn't love you. My friend Shannon had made a video referencing it to a famous musician that received a note mid performance. And then after the performance, he was unalived. So there's a lot of deep cuts that some people might see, while others might not, and that's what's so great about the My Chemical Romance fandom and community is everybody can pull from what they know and what they specialize in to really help us put the piece of this lore together.
yeah, I love that. And I'll try to find all those videos and link them to in the show notes. So if anyone wants to deep dive into that, you can. And then when your PowerPoint video is ready, I'll put that in there as well. So Gerard is murdered by the clown. The rest of the band is kidnapped. I know there's some theories that Mikey is not. Maybe he gets away because he runs away, he's being chased. And then the band leaves. They ditch the costumes. B stage, we get a few songs in every set that we're seeing, and then some surprise songs in the rest. I don't want to get too much into all of it because I know that we could talk about that forever too. But it's really exciting. It's a little scary going into a show because I have my list already of like these are the songs I really want to hear. Like, please, there's no way to be disappointed. I do want you to talk though about the two biggest surprises. We did talk about the unreleased song, so we already covered that a bit. I hope it gets released on Spotify because I really do like it, and so maybe they'll like give it to us, but maybe not. Second, though, the Smashing Pumpkins uh, cover. That was such a special one. I recently got to see Smashing Pumpkins as well and loved and being able to see that tie in and seeing, the past interviews and stuff. But why was that so important? And do you think that we'll see it again?
When I woke up and saw they covered a Smashing Pumpkins song, I ran to my fridge because I had to make a video explaining just like the very deep history about how the Smashing Pumpkins is why the Way brothers wanted to start a band. So, and even like picking Bullet with the butterfly wings, there's so much deep meaning into that. Some Danger Days songs sound similar to Smashing Pumpkins songs like 1975. Um, but to get back to the core of why is this song so important? Why is Smashing Pumpkins so important? When Mikey Way was a teenager in the 90s, Mikey got in trouble with the FBI for selling bootleg Disney VHS tapes in order to save up money to buy concert tickets because Mikey wanted to take his big brother to see Smashing Pumpkins at the Melancholy and Infinite Sadness tour. And it was a two-night show at Madison Square Garden, sold out. And when they went together, being in the pit at that show, that is when Mikey turned to Gerard and said, "This is what I want to do with my life." And then in May 2008, when My Chemical Romance performed their sold out Madison Square Garden show, it was like this full circle moment. It's very sweet for them to be play an homage to their dad, Billy Corrigan. Another funny, long standing joke. I remember the first time I saw them make the joke on Fuse TV. Yeah, it's very sweet and special.
Do you think we'll get Billy at a show, like doing that with them? Like, could you see that happening on this tour?
I know some fans had commented on my content saying, like, why is Smashing Pumpkins not opening for them? And it's like, My Chem would open for Smashing Pumpkins first off. Maybe someday, somehow, some way, they would perform with Billy as like a surprise special guest. But it's really up to Billy, you know?
Yeah. I
He
feel
did
like it could
promise that
happen.
he's proud.
He seems like he would be into it, right? Because he's one, his TikToks are hilarious. And even seeing him perform, because I saw them perform opening for Green Day, which is also wild. Like, why are they opening for Green Day? But it was one of the best shows I'd ever been to because Green Day is iconic too. But anyways, they opened for Green Day and they had so much fun on the stage. And that's something I've pulled into a lot of my episodes of it's so special to see bands that have been around for a long time having fun on a stage. You're seeing that with My Kim, which is really, really special. Like they're having fun. The B stage, they seem to be having fun. Like they seem to be really enjoying it. And as a fan, there's nothing worse than going to see a band that you love and they honestly hate what they're doing. And so you feel almost like you're taking from them and they hate it and they're not getting anything out of it. But it seems like My Kim is getting that. So like maybe Billy will show up and
We can only hope.
maybe.
It's so sweet and special since reunion tour seeing them perform again and they're all beaming with the biggest smiles. And I remember seeing and I was right in front of Mikey during the Black Parade tour back in the day and just Mikey was stone faced. There was no smile. So to see Mikey just beaming every night, it's like
Yeah, so special. And the wives are there. It's like
I love it.
it does seem like a family. And even seeing them older, like as someone who's getting older, I love it. Like they're leaning into who they are. And I know Gerard has said that in past interviews. So like they don't want to create the same thing. They want to showcase that they're getting older, like they're evolving, and we're seeing that. So a few little quick fire questions, probably the hardest questions I'll ask you.
Hmm.
Top number one, My Kim song, what would it be? You can only live with one song forever.
Shut up and play.
Oh, okay. Favorite band member and why?
Mikey. I've been a Mikey girly since day one. It's just, one of those people where it's like they speak to your soul. That's how it's always been with Mikey.
I'm going to go on a tangent because I just wanted to come back to this. Do you think, because Gerard is very private, doesn't really seem to want the spotlight, right? Very introspective, creative dude. Do you think My Kim is more for Mikey than anything else?
Yeah. I mean, they said in an interview on Life in the Murder Scene, they said Mikey is the soul, the heart of the band.
Amazing. What show are you going to?
Jersey. My first time seeing them in Jersey,
I'm
and my
jealous.
10th time seeing them.
Amazing. Would you pick pit or seats?
I do seats now because I am too old for pit and I understand how rough it can be. But I also say I had my moment. I had my barricade pit moment on the Black Parade tour. Now it's time for somebody else.
Absolutely. What song do you hope? Any song in addition, do you want it to be your favorite song? Like, what do you want to happen on the B stage?
I want Demolition Lovers not for me, but for all the fans that are so desperate for Demo Lovers.
I want
Or
that.
I never told you what I do for a living because that would be my guilty pleasure.
Amazing. Okay. And then if you could see anything happen with this storyline beyond just the basics of, okay, a new album being released, but what would be your dream scenario of the storyline developing throughout the rest of the tour?
I've said since before the started that I see them resisting and overthrowing the dictator and ushering in a new era. That's what I'm hoping to see ultimately.
Wonderful. Anything else you want to share for fans, especially new fans out there? Any words of wisdom to leave?
You are enough. The amount of merch you own, the amount of times you've seen the band does not matter, does not equate to how big a fan or how much you love the band. And end of the day, if I can impart any knowledge or wisdom to other fans, it's A, the pipeline theory is flawed, heavily flawed. And two, respect the band more than you love the band because they're human beings too.